Disgyn i Morris, walk over the ergyd. Where's Baines? Where's Baines? Di sgorio dros gap Quay Connah.
Ac mae Cwpan Cymru 2017, 2018 yn mynd i Quay Connah. Mae hynny yn
cyflwyno y gwpani George Horan. A Quay Connah ydy enillwyr Cwpan Nathaniel MG.
Hello and welcome to the Quay Talking Points, our new audio and video podcast here at Connah Nomads Football Club. It's a new concept that we thought we'd put together over the current coronavirus pandemic, trying to come up with new ideas for content, and it's pushed us into the idea of setting up our own podcast. It's going to be available, as I say, both as audio and video, so it'll be available on our YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts as well. Who I am? I'm Nick Mesney. I've been with the club since 2012. I'm the media officer here at the club, and you'll see me on match days generally doing things like taking photos around the pitch. I also set up the match day programmes, I look after the website, and anything else that's basically got a logo or a badge or anything else media related at the club, something that I look after. I do have a partner in crime, and his name's Will Cattrall. He runs the match day social media channel, so all of the fantastic up-to-date tweets that you see during the match days, that's Will's little baby. And he also has been doing a lot of coverage of our academy recently on our social media and on our websites. So the idea is that both myself and Will are going to be hosting this podcast. So I'll do an episode, Will will do an episode, maybe we'll do an episode together. And hopefully Will's going to be interviewing one of our academy star players over the next couple of weeks, following on from the news that they were recently announced as under-19s league champions for the North. Recently on the content in terms of our website, I've been putting out ideas such as our Euro focus articles that have relived some of our fantastic memories over the last couple of years in Europe. We've also done a couple of Skype calls which kind of preluded to this idea. We used it as a little bit of a tester. And recently we've also been doing the fantastic Key Skills Challenges, which has seen some outstanding talent from our academy players. And it was the idea of Jay Catton, and he's my guest today. So just to get into a little touch on Jay's background at the club, he joined in 2001, set up the academy in 2009, having to take a backseat from playing after knee injuries hampered his actual playing career. And when he did set up the academy, there was only one under-16 team. 6 years later, he set up the scholarship partnership with College Cambria, and as our academy is continuing to flourish, as I just mentioned, our under-19s won the league recently. We're in a fantastic position thanks to Jay's hard work in setting up the groundworks of our academy. We've had so many players go on and play for the first team, as well as go on and sign for big teams. Obviously, Reece Healy's the big name that's gone on to sign for Cardiff City. He's played in the Scottish Premiership, English Premiership, and now he's currently plying his trade at MK Dons. So one absolute success story there that I'm sure we'll talk about today. And Jay's obviously been a real key part of our first team coaching setup as well for the best part of a decade now. And he's seen some of the lows and some of the highs. He was there when we got denied promotion from the Hughes Gray Alliance due to a lack of licensing. But he was also the man on the touchline due to a Andy Morrison suspension when we beat Helsinki in Bangor in the Europa League a couple of years back. So, as I say, my guest today, Jay Catton. So, Jay, welcome to the first ever edition of the Quay Talking Points here, the new podcast for Connah Nomads. Thought who better than yourself to get involved with the first episode? I think you can probably tell the tale of Connah probably better than anybody over the last sort of 10 plus years kind of thing. So, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Nick. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been in the planning for the last week or so, but it got put on hold, obviously, because you've had to kind of get sidetracked with the academy licensing that's been sort of dropped on you a little bit over the last couple of days. Can you just sort of go into a bit of detail about what that's involved for you?
Yeah, so we had quite a big week, really, because we had to finish off the final academy licensing. Now, normally, Colin Staples, your two, will come to the club, go through all the records, make sure all the players are registered the right way, all the detailed session plans, would analyse sessions as well, check your e-learning stuff. And obviously, unfortunately, it was a no-go this week because of the current situation. So, you're adapting, and we had to do some of our modules via Zoom to a number of our players, so our 12s, 14s, 16s, and Ben Nash, Anthony Weir from the 12 delivered theirs, and later some of the 14s, Gareth Ritchie 16s. Some really good meetings, and good lectures that worked well. And yeah, we got through it, passed everything that was required, which was great. Another successful season with the academy. But yeah, it was a tough week in what it was. But also, it's been, the challenges that have come around it, Nick, have also led to, ideas moving forward and how we can communicate with others better. And so there's positives to take.
Yeah, it's a learning procedure as well. Like
massively,
the way they do
me and you.
Yeah,
it's huge, and I think not just for football, but I think in industry, it'll be a bit of a game changer. That a lot of people have been arguably successful working from home. There are positives of having engagement like this, and I'm sure there'll be no doubt things in the future that we'll take positives from this and utilize as well. And that was one from the academy with the Zoom meetings, and a lot of clubs have done it, but they've gone down really well.
Absolutely. So let's take it right back to the beginning for you personally. When did you start playing football, and how did you get into it yourself? What was the route in for you?
Yeah, so like a lot of kids, really loved it from day. Footballing background family, uncle played, semi-professionally and whatnot. Was always growing up with it, and joined my first ever team at the age of 6. I think it was, which was then Wet Wasps. Now Wet Wasps eventually became. I was under 8 and became Connah Nomads juniors back then. So a bit crazy really, in that I played for Connah Nomads all the way through juniors from 8 to 16 through the local junior leagues as it was then. There wasn't necessarily academies. Had the joy of playing for county a number of times as a kid, and at under 19s level. There was a North Wales representative team, which I played for 4 times as well, which was great. And we played the Scotland international team once, and that was really good and quite a proud moment as a kid, really. But yeah, very fortunate. So I've had that path, and we'd had a really strong team. I think out of from 12 to 17, people playing junior leagues, we'd won every one on the way, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just absolutely loved it from day one. Football was my thing. Football was what I loved. That was my passion. And yeah, obviously from that, the career path went in different ways with some of the things that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. You did briefly make a few appearances for the first team as well before knee injuries cut your career short as well. Can you remember a few of those games?
Yeah, it was very unfortunate, because when I was in year 11, so 15, 16, myself, I'm best friends, or 2 of my best friends, Jim Gambino and Lewis Powell. And Lewis Powell's dad at the time was Neville Powell, who was the Connah's manager. Obviously went on to Bangor and whatnot. And we'd always been free. We performed well for our local team and the academy and whatnot. And we'd actually trained with the first team at around age 15, 16 on a regular basis. So that was an unbelievable experience, and back then it was brutal.
Yeah.
It was physical. It was in the lines.
Lots of running.
Hard skill. I remember the Kelson Lane runs. You do a few of them in a long time with George, who would still blast it back then, and setting that example. But it was great, and I've got a lot of respect for Neville Powell, because he was someone, and there was 2 big friendly games that I actually took part in, which was a Man United 11 at Deeside Stadium, and a Tranmere Rovers 11 at Flint, which was great. For me personally, I remember a time of Tranmere game, just a little personal, where I had the ball and was taken out by Jason McAteer, and and he gave me a bit, and it's just little things you remember, and they're only friendly games, never got to that level. And yes, in terms of first team, actually played for the reserves and whatnot all the way through, a bit in and out with injuries. Actually made a Welsh Cup appearance against Carmarthen for the first team, and then also on top of that, I was a handful of League Cup and Welsh Cup games. Or one of the Welsh Cup games I actually played in was the first knee injury, really, that sort of set me back. So my first, I actually played the game, and I think it was the last few minutes of the game, I had a big 50-50 tackle. I felt something not right in my knee straight away, and then played for the North Wales team the week after. And my cruciate went on my right, and that was the first one. And then obviously recovery period, what it was back, and then come back the following year, and then playing for what was then the 21s against TNS. I'd gone for a header landed on my left one, the same problem. And then it was a bit of a vicious cycle, really. So then, my mentality was always to come back and do what I could do. I then came back for the reserves. I mean, it was 1 or 2 years later against Kaisu. So my right one went again. So that was a third operation.
Yeah, you kind of know that.
Last chance. Yeah, and then last chance saloon at uni for Preston Uni team. We played Manchester. Same sort of scenario, really, up for a header. misslided, and the left one went, and that was the fourth one. So we cruciate damage and tendonitis damage, 4 knee operations. The last one, the sort of surgeon was, that's it. If you try and push again, it's not. But very fortunate, to have done. And during the senior career, having played for all the levels, I was quite proud to have played from, at the time, it was Clue Division 2, 1 Premier, then Welsh Alliance, where we also had a partner with Sealand that I played for, Premier Alliance with the club, and then Welsh Prem. So I was quite proud to do it. But yeah, very, very, very average player, mate. Work hard, listen, advice, all sort of thing. But yeah, it's not many, but a few to name.
Yeah, you touched on going off to uni. What was it that you went off and actually studied and got your degree in?
So I got my degree in sports coaching and exercise science.
Okay.
So it was always my path. I'd actually started coaching by the age of, gone back after when we did this podcast at the age of 14, which is quite, very early really. So I remember year 10 and we took myself and Jim, James Gambino, Tigers under 7s team. And we took them all the way through, and and it was the first thing really that I knew that's what I wanted to do. I was a passion. I was very clear and driven in that way, and stayed at school, did A levels to get PE A level done, and always had that vision of wanting to go to uni to get a degree and go through the coaching route. So I applied to University of Central Lancashire at the time in Preston, and by the age of 18, was moving away, living in the city, and experiencing uni life, the highs and the lows.
Part of your uni life was going over to America, though, wasn't it? And doing a 6-month stint over there.
Yeah. One of the best things at university, just for me personally, Nick, is that experience of living away, city living, with my parents, living at home. One of the best things in our course, we had the experiences to work with certain clubs. So during the 3 years, I'd worked at Blackburn Rovers. We were there on the 18s team as an analyst. So using Prozone, Sport Code back then, and working alongside that, and also in Preston North End Academy. A lot of shadowing, a lot of learning, obviously all voluntary, and gain all experience you can get. And in my second year, I had the opportunity to role in America. So starting MLS camps, a lot of the community stuff. But this specific one was linked with LA Galaxy. So it was the opportunity to actually go to America and go to California. So I'd gone to a trial. You had to do a coach-ed trial sort of thing at Leeds. And then there was another one in Scotland. I passed successfully and was given a 6-month contract to work under the LA Galaxy MLS Camps banner. So did a final meeting in London, I think it was, and got the visa all sorted. And so during the second year, went and experienced there 6 months over there, which was amazing. And I'd still say to this day, arguably the best thing I ever did. Big move. I think it was only 19 at the time. But to go and do something like that was amazing. Sort of opens your eyes to another world, another way of living, another way of coaching, and it was great. Absolutely loved it. And
you met David Beckham and Tom Cruise over there as well.
Yeah, bit of a go-to story. Anyone, there's loads that have done the American stuff, and one of the best things with it is that how it worked when I was there is you basically did a homestay with a family each time.
Okay.
So during the 6 months, I basically went to the OC, Laguna, San Francisco, and you'd go to a different area. But each week you stay with a family. And one of the weeks we went to an LA Galaxy, and during the game we'd just staff. We'd been invited to a room, and obviously David Beckham was there, and it was just a Man United fan. And he knew where we were from, and we chatting. It was great. And then also, have you seen my mate over there? And then oh no, who's your mate? And Tom Cruise comes over.
Wow.
So and the only devastation at that point is that we didn't, it was 10, 12 years ago now, there wasn't the mobile phone devices that were there, so you haven't got any phones. It's really disappointing. But yeah, it was a great story. But that's that's how in America we say that when we're getting off the plane at 19 and we were given a rental car and it was like a Mustang, and at the age of 19 I got off at the exit, off you go, you got to get to here, and to do that was great. But met so many great people. I always remember one of the last road trips that we did, and we went all the way and across California. I think it was just before we went home and ended up in Vegas. Nice. It's a great time, great experience. But yeah, it was great, and the football was amazing. To link in with LA Galaxy at that point, it was setting up their academy. That was the whole idea, that they were recruiting in the area, doing camps to try and build their academy, and it was linked to a David Beckham academy at the time. But yeah, really, really special time in 6 months. I'd recommend it to anyone that ever gets the opportunity to do it. To go away, travel, works. One of the best things you can ever do.
So when you came back from America and finished up with uni and everything, you came back to Connah and got involved with starting up the academy.
Yeah, well, during my whole time, I'd always stayed at the club. Mm-hmm. So I'd always been involved. I was played with the first team, and during once the injuries had occurred, I'd then dropped into sort of reserve level. And during my time at uni, I'd actually gone through the management or coaching and playing the reserves, and we won the Division 2, Division 1, and then the club Premier. So whilst the free, I'd still come back most weekends to do the games,
sure.
And trains and whatnot. So it was still quite local, and that was quite important to me, as well as still doing the local junior Tigers team that we did, because it was always, I never wanted to waste the 3 years at uni. I wanted to always have an end goal and what was coming back to, and making sure that was built. So it was quite good then. And I think the big change that happened when I finished uni was, and then an opportunity then by John Gray, who was then current to, from the role in reserves and whatnot, to would you be interested in coming to start up again the academy? So the academy had ran previously under people like Ned Powell and Jim Hackett, but for whatever reasons it ended, and there was a complete blank canvas, and the club were looking to go back and push on. And from that, I got the opportunity to get off the ground. And when we look at the academy now, it's what it was 9-10 years ago. It's so rewarding and pleasing me, because that first day I remember getting to Dock Road again, and we had nothing. We didn't have one team. We didn't have one player.
No.
We didn't have a home. We didn't have a ground. Didn't have the academy money back then. And it was tough, the first few years, but it was also so enjoyable because you had to find solutions to these problems. You didn't have the 3G pitch. You had to get a great set. You had to recruit well, like is the same now at any level. The recruitment is arguably the most important thing. And we did, and we got a really, really strong under-16s team. So our first ever team, and that year, myself and Darren Wynn, who's a former player, who came in alongside me, and we really hit off the ground, and we actually got to the North that first year, and that was just so important because it set the tone then for everything to.
Sorry, what was that? You got to the final of the audio just cut out just then. Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, it was the Northern at that time, the Northern final.
Right.
So we lost to Porth Madig in that one, who then actually went on to win the national. So from nothing, we created a great team, but it was the start, and that was the most important. And it was just so important to them foundations, because for any club to progress, that had to happen. And then following that first year at academy doing that, I also then linked in with Mark McGregor, an opportunity with the first team as well. So then it was able to combine, and that's when things really grew and developed across all sectors, really.
Brilliant. And a couple of years later, and then you extended it up to 3 teams as well.
Yeah, so again, like to now, you've got to have a minimum of a 12, 14, 16. So once you got that first year out of the belt, that was the next progression, year 2. Yeah. And I still go to this day to the most important people that we ever brought into the club. And my opinion of the recruitment of coaches is as important, if not more important, than the recruitment of players, especially at academy level, because the standard of coaching, the people skills, the development of players is so important. And when we look back then, and Mark Rowlands joined the club early on, Neil Eberl became keeper coach to the academy. Kevin Manley took one of the sides, and these were key people. And then I think a few years down the line, Leighton Sumner joined as well. And these are 4 people that for me have just been phenomenal, because any success, in my opinion, is judged on longevity. And these people give so much to the club and done so many teams, they did so many players, and also paved the way. Because you look back, Nick, and it's quite comical now, but we used to have to set all the kits up in change rooms. We'd have to walk the miles to the top pitches on the high school, put the nets up, put the rope up, all the gear. You'd finish, you'd have to take it all down, bring it all back. We'd put the kits home, wash our own kits, all the lads, and that was the norm. That was academy football. You had to get it off, we had to get it going, but it was great. So many great times. And when you look at what our academy kids have now, and new coaches are perfect 3G pitches, everything nets done. It's it's another world, but it's great. But it was all those initial years of building blocks, and what we did have allowed for that. And you look back, and it's some great times. Fully enjoyed it.
those building blocks put in place then in 2013, it was actually your under-16s team that then went on to go and win the Academy Cup.
Yeah, it was quite funny really, because that one of the initial teams that we brought in as what it was, there were our 10s, there were really young ones, and that was a good group because that was the group that I had a lot of them in my junior league team and representative team. So you like Thomas Bibby, Jack Chambers, really, really great lads, and we'd actually had them from the age of sort of come through, and they were then my initial Academy Cup team, and we built them and developed. And when they got to 16s, that was another huge achievement, because that was our first ever Academy team to win the Academy, which again set a tone, set a precedence. Obviously, Academy football's not all about that, but it's a huge achievement, because to be whatever age you are when you're announced as the best team in Wales, that's an incredible feat. And any academy is doing the job right if you've got teams that are competing and developing players like that. And to look at those players again and what they went on to do, and so many now in America, so many did play for our first team. It's great, and that was a key group in the academy.
A number of those players also went on to play in the Welsh Cup Final as well. Obviously, first one of those we'd got to since the foundation of the club almost as well.
Yeah, the Welsh Cup Final, the game at Swansea.
Yeah, that's the one. I mean, obviously Swansea, winners for 9 years in a row or whatever, so their standards are so exceptionally high, but it was an amazing achievement to get there nonetheless.
Yeah, it was huge. And again, this year it's been a little bit different because the Swansea and Cardiff are no longer in the competition. But back then, to get all the way, and Mark Rowlands was the manager of the 19s at the time, and still an incredible achievement. And what those lads did. And you look back at that team of Jordan Manleys, Ben Nashes, again Jack Chambers, Tom Bibby, James Kilburns, and what's key with all those players is they're still playing now at a very, very good level. Whether that is tier 2, tier 3 Welsh football abroad in America, and that was something that group had. It was a it was a special group. We'd had them for a long. Again, it was great, and they did well in the final. I think they were holding their own before Swansea just scored for half time, and a bit like second half they had to open up, and Swansea went on and got 2 and 3. But prior to that, they were right in the game, and it was a great achievement. And hopefully in the future, that's the aim, to go one better. Could we win the Welsh Youth Cup for the first time in the club's history?
Yeah, why not? You talked about the sort of the building blocks and the looking a bit comical, almost having to go and set the nets up and everything. But then on the flip side, the highlights that the academy kids have enjoyed over the years have been some of the amazing tours to places like Portugal, London, Holland, Spain, Italy, and Scotland, where you've actually ended up with some unbelievable results as well.
Yeah, the academy tours was something that I really pushed for when we started, because again, maybe on the back of America, really going abroad and learning, and the tours are fantastic. The players absolutely love them. They are there for the players first and foremost. But one of the best part of tours as a coach is that opportunity to learn. So what we've always done with our tours, where a lot will go to tournaments, and we have done tournaments before, the old Holland on a bus, get the ferry over, it's a 36-hour journey. We've all done it, and you have a great time. We love it. But we wanted to do a different bit of an angle, really. We wanted to try and link up with pro clubs and enjoy training sessions there, enjoy games against their opposition, speak to their coaches, find out why they do things, and for our players to gain that experience. And like you said, to name but a few that come to mind, Portugal, Benfica. I remember playing Benfica. We played them on Benfica TV, which is a live station like MUTV, and our under-15s game, I think it was, that was streamed, and we lost 4-3. We did really well. I think you can find a goal somewhere. I think we scored one goal from Steve Bella. It was just phenomenal. It was out from the back, and 20 pass moves, really, really good. Italy, we linked in with AC Milan, Juventus. Holland with Mac Brader and Ajax Feyenoord. The Spain tours that we've had with Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Rayo Vallecano. We've had some amazing times, and it's always interesting with the trips, Nick, because it's the one that the kids, that's what they remember.
Yeah.
When I see some
lifelong memories
players, those who were 24, 25, you speak to them, and I remember that Madrid trip. I remember that Holland trip, and that's a key part. And I think it was 2 years ago today that we lasted the latest Madrid tour, which was one of the best ones. But we've got so many memories, and personally, we've met. I've had the joy of meeting people like Rui Costa at Benfica. We met Zidane at Real Madrid, and And these people took time out. Hierro at the last one when we went to Madrid last year.
I saw a photo the other day pop up on Twitter with one of the little lads with Xabi Alonso as well.
That was. I think they were doing a B license at the time of Xavi Alonso, Julio Batista, and it was great. But they are, Nick. They're so important, and we're looking forward to. We were planning on having one this year, but unfortunately didn't come. But obviously with these situations, you'd be quite lucky that we didn't. But yeah, it's looking for next year, and it's something that's been huge at the football club, and so many great memories, and something that we really pride ourselves on, and looking for some exciting tours in the future.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. Obviously, on that trip to Madrid that we mentioned, it was actually 2-0 that we won against Atletico Madrid. I mean, arguably one of the biggest results in the whole club's history as well.
Yeah, that was quite a remarkable one, really, because we've been over to Madrid 2 years prior to that. And I always remember that we played Rayo Vallecano, and very young, inexperienced coach herself. We play this way. We're going to play them at their own. We're going to pass them off the park. And I think we lost 6-7-0, and we never touched the ball. And it was a bit of a learning curve. One of the first probably experiences for me, just my own career, of adaptability. Adaptability is key. A lot of people, and there's no right, no wrong. A lot of people have the philosophy that that's what I do. Your Pep Guardiola style. And that's great. But for me, I'm a little bit more adaptability is key. You have to have your principles, but also being adaptable and being able to change in certain situations is key. And after that Rayo Vallecano game, we had a great chat with the players. We tweaked a few things tactically because 2 nights after we were playing Real Madrid, and it was well known, speaking to their coach, that Real Madrid had beat Rayo Vallecano double figures. Now Rayo Vallecano just beat us 7-0.
Yeah.
What we going into? And, we created a bit of a plan, still playing. Still playing, still developing. But we did well, and we actually drew that game 1-1. Wow. And it was great. And I think going to Madrid then 2 years later, we took lots of stuff back, and we could develop prior. And when we went over there, that result still to this day. And I think it got a bit of press coverage as well here in the UK, to be fair. And it was a great one for the lads and a great one for the club, and it's memorable. But we've always done well, and I think that's the key change now, Nick. In the past, where a Welsh club or Welsh Premier Academy would go and play certain pro clubs, and it'd be an experience to go. It doesn't matter the result or the performance, and just enjoyed it. Whereas now we compete. We compete on all levels, at Football League level, Premier League level, when we go abroad, and that's the challenge really, and that's a testament to the whole academy system, how much is developed and progressed, and as well as Connah's Nomads Academy, how that's continuing to grow and continuing to push them boundaries and compete at that sort of international level now.
Sure. And so getting a little bit away from the academy now, your time with the first team. I mean, you've been with the first team pretty much a decade realistically now. You've seen all the highs and all the lows of that past decade. I mean, going back right back to the beginning, right back to my time beginning really with the club. It was winning the Alliance twice on the bounce, but obviously getting turned down for promotion the first time. I mean, how devastating was that at the time?
Yeah, I remember that well. I remember exactly where I was. I remember the phone call from Mark McGregor at the time. And at that point, that was my first season in with the first team, and sort of a coaching role. But we were still doing the reserves as well. So I was combining in both at that first season. And, we'd done so well because the previous year we'd been relegated based on the league split. This was the first time it ever became a Super 12. Bracket that if it was a 16-team league, we would have been all right, but we were relegated. And Mark McGregor's first full season as well. We'd done superbly and won the league. And the academy had done everything right. The first was everything right. All the players everything right. And to get that phone call that it was a licensing criteria problem that was above ours, the current secretary at the time, and it was just absolutely devastating. And people don't give enough credit, really, Nick, just on of licensing, how difficult that it is. It's so easy to fail because there's so many points to it and so many criteria now. It's fantastic, it's great, but it's a challenge, and it's a creator everyone does it. But that year when we got it, I remember meeting Mark that summer, and then I officially came in as assistant manager then, so I'd left the reserves going into new season. I remember us having that chat of how are we going to do this? How do you reinvigorate a group who's just won the league, done everything they were to do, and they didn't get up. And we were so privileged that time that we had such a great group, and we did. And people like just Terry McCormick, Danny Ford, Craig Jones, Tigger, Alan Hooley. We brought in Ricky Evans that season. It was great during his time with us, and we went again. And it was one of the best periods the club has also ever achieved. And I'll always give huge credit to Mark McGregor on that, Nick, because not just as a manager, but if you remember him playing, he was top drawer. And
he popped up with plenty of vital equalisers and winners.
Huge, and that was the one thing with Mark that no one probably gave him credit. I think that season, he was our second highest goal scorer behind Gary O'Toole.
Double figures.
He got 11 or 12
remember for that season.
It was. I always remember 2 games. It was Buckley away, Buckley home, and we were drawing both games. In the 90th minute, he's gone up front and he scored 2 unbelievable goals, and they've won us the game. And to have player managers you just don't see anymore, and what Mark did with the club over them 2 years, and it's never been done again. I think I had a look at the records. I think Connah have won it twice, but they had a gap in between. I think for starting
nobody's done it back to back. I don't think.
No, it's back to back, and I'll still say, and you look at the league now, and some huge clubs in there, real banger, and you don't just come straight up. The league is so difficult, and it's such a challenge. So it was first full season, and it was an incredible one. I still see, to this day, that was a huge change for the club's fortunes, because also previous to that, the academy we'd never had any money because you only get funded in the Welsh Premier. So not just for the person going up for academy. So all them years that we had to do things voluntary and
enormous for
things
that
running to get to that stage, right? Massive, and it was first season was definitely one to remember. And I think we sealed it off winning at Penikai, and I remember Gary Jewett and Ty Rebecca. She actually presented the trophy as well, which was a great touch. I sent Gary a photo of that this week, and I think it believes 8 years ago now.
Yeah.
So time flies, but it was a great season, mate. Really, really good achievement.
The following season, 2012-13, I guess is kind of highlighted by the emergence of probably one of the best academy product that we've had that's gone on for so much success in Rhys Healey. Obviously, he came through and banging the goals in for fun, and then Cardiff City swooped in for him. Yeah,
it's an amazing story with Rhys in it, because we can't take a huge amount of credit for him, to be honest, because it was a bit of a fairy tale story that, we saw him playing in a local park, and who's this lad? Wow. Where I live in Connah's Quay. Well, we've never heard. I've just moved, and he literally just moved from Manchester. We see him at park, invited him down, and he just went. He came in initially at our under 15s, and we moved him up straight away into our under 16s. I think halfway through that season, he played for 18s, and that first year in the Cymru Alliance, Mark McGregor, like he did with a number of players, Ryan Edwards was another one at that group that went on to do great things. And he was given that opportunity there. But I think the one thing that a lot of people don't remember with Rhys is that the system we played back then was a 3-4-1-2. It was very innovative.
Yeah.
From Mark McGregor, we played. But the key for Rhys is it allowed him to play up front with someone, and that other player up front with him was Ricky Evans. So he would do the hustle bustle, traditional big forward, small forward, and Rhys could do what he did, and obviously his pace, his energy, and one of the best stories I'll ever say personally with Rhys is I remember doing the fitness testing before the first Welsh Premier season, and we were back up, and Rhys, I think he was in the yo-yo test, was either second from bottom or bottom. He was actually, the lowest in first level. Wow. So he had all that ability, and that's where he was. And I believe in 6 months he went from there to the top 3, top 4, and obviously since then he's just progressed. So it also just highlights that mentality required. But Rhys was fantastic, and what he's gone on to do with Cardiff, and he's still to this day arguably the biggest achievement from the academy. We've had other players recently, Ben Thompson, it's now Fleetwood, Louis Lloyd just signed a Scholar Pro at Shrewsbury as well. So there's more that are coming through. But it was great, and that first season of Welsh Prem was another great experience, and for me personally as a coach, because Mark would play. So when Mark McGregor would be on the pitch, I would be running the team and sidelines, obviously in conjunction with him. But at the age of what it was then, 22, 23, you're thrown straight in, and it was a great experience. That first year, we did unbelievably well as well.
We did unbelievably well, get into the playoffs, despite having, again, a bit of a licensing sort of issue in terms of the Lee Davey issue, where he came on for 2 minutes and cost us a place in the top 6, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was another, arguably as close to the licensing problem that we had the season or so prior. this was up there because the lads in the first year, to any club will tell you, if you can make the top 6, it's an incredible feat. To do it in your first season in the Welsh Premier,
absolutely
phenomenal. And yeah, unfortunately, I remember we signed Lee Davey, and I think he'd played for Conway previously under Chris Herbert, and a great player, good lad. But prior to that, he'd actually played the first game of the season for Colwyn Bay, and he came on for 1 minute, didn't even touch the ball. But rules as they were, the club, and the same for us, he came on against, I'm going to say it was Carmarthen. And again, I don't think he touched the ball for us. I think it was 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And then following that, it came ahead. Obviously, in today's age, with the new comet system, that could matter because you wouldn't be able to...
No, you wouldn't be able to select him.
No, but I remember that because that was a horrible one. We played Bala the last game. So we still had to win to get top 6.
Yeah.
And Bala were away back then with the team we had and where they were. And it was a bit of against the odds game. But me and Mark had decided we're not going to tell them anything until after the game. And it can still only happen if we win. And then Carmarthen, I think it was Carmarthen at the time, they still have to win, and they had a big game at home. It was a bit against the odds, really. And I remember the game, we'd won by, I think, 5 or 6. Hazy scored a hat. And then we come off the pitch, and Mark looking at me, what was the Carmarthen score? And it was, they've won. And we have to go into change rooms, and as you can imagine, lads are over the moon, and we have to sort of break the news. It was tough, but again, in huge credit to the players, people forget we finished, we actually did get into the playoffs that year. So even with that news, we did do it. And again, a bit random, we played Bala in the semis, and one loss. Yeah, and lost 1-0. But yeah, it was an experience. But again, it was testament to that group, and you can't emphasise enough the names just there. Another, Jamie Petch was another, Ben Collins at the time. We had a really, really strong group, and I think that says a lot about them. And they were key people and players during that period for the club that have allowed for the future success.
The following season, we went. You talk about how difficult it is for that first season to get into the top 6, and it showed you just how difficult it was the following season that we only stayed up on the final day of the season. Yeah,
arguably second season syndrome.
Yeah,
as people like to say it, and I think it probably was. I think the first year you do come up, and it's shown over the years. You do have that little bit. You're new, you're fresh, you've got new styles. People don't know everything about you, the way you play, the way you do things. And second year, teams adapted. And that's one thing with the Welsh Premier. With everything available, you adapt and you do. And we didn't quite have the same. Once Reece had gone at that point, we didn't have that top goal score. We were in a bit of transition ourselves. And I remember that. Christmas break, the winter break, we brought in about 4 or 5 players and to really push for survival, because it was tough. And I remember at that point it was Avon, Lido down. I think it was ourselves and Prestatyn that were really fighting it out. And I always remember that game with, I think it was 2 games to go, when we were away to Prestatyn and we had to get a draw minimum really to stay up. And that famous, what I would say, the Lee McCardle goal, he's dropped it out of the sky 30, 40 yards up, and he's just scored one of the best goals you'll ever see. And, that goes 1-0. And then with 10 minutes to go, I think they scored Ross Stevens. We just held out for a draw 1-1. And then we went to have a lead on the last game, and luckily enough, did it. But that's the standard, Nick. And we'll say it can change very quickly. And then it was another key season for the club, because it was another year where we've stayed in, we've retained. We need to reflect, we need to perform. There's academy funding secured, etc. And these are all parts of it that comes with first team. There's pressure, because your first team has to do well for all the other sections of the club to thrive as well. And that was, it was another, in my opinion, another big achievement to stay in that second year.
Yeah, you talk about the teams that staying up. Obviously, you've seen sort of teams like the likes of Llanelli the last year sort of thing. They came up so strongly from the league below and dominated everything, and then went immediately straight back down. So it is absolutely testament to how difficult it is to stay in the top flight.
Yeah, and I think it's changed even more now, Nick. I think it's the standard is getting better and better across all levels, and any Cymru North team or Cymru South team coming up, the work they have to do to compete is huge. And for any team then we say it all the time, of the 12 teams on any day, anyone can beat anybody. Yeah. And you've got all pro licensed coaches now. You have access to all the teams like the Instat, Y Scout, the knowledge you've got on every Scorio footage, and that's what makes us such an exciting league, because there's nothing in it. Standard across the board is so high and continues to grow. We've got to ensure that we personally ourselves keep pushing and growing with that.
The following season, it was a case of Mark McGregor leaving the club after doing so much fantastic work, and Alan Bickerstaff coming in, and again we reached the playoff finals, this time against Aberystwyth, and unfortunately losing out again. It was always the bridesmaid almost kind of thing for us a little bit. Becoming
I think that was another key season for me, Nick, and it was another progressive season. I mean, that was the key with it. Unfortunately, Mark's time ended around January. I think we were just languishing just above the relegation zone again. Yeah. And Mark, as I said, Mark McGregor was outstanding, and the work he did. Still good friends with him today, and still speak regularly. And I'm no doubt when he does decide to come back into football, he'll do another great job wherever he goes. But when Mark left, Gary, I remember, just spoke to myself and Alan Bickerstaff at the time to take joint interim manager from then to the end of the season. So we had 10 games, and we had a bit of a vision and a plan of what we wanted to do and to compete. And it's quite funny that year, Nick, because I know you were heavily involved by that, and you look at the team that we actually had on paper, and we had a hell of a team by the end of it, because what we'd recruited at January. I still say to this day, when you look at, we had Steve Evans and George Ferran centre halves. Yeah. You're free in midfield with Danny sitting, Jay Crowder, we got from Colwyn Bay, your box to box, great legs. With lone Ryan Fraun. For us, that 10 was his deliveries were superb. And we had Sean Miller one side, Alan Bull the other side, and then one of the best signings for me, and a bit of a off the cuff signing, was Cortez Bell.
Yeah, he was outstanding in those last 5 games.
Yeah. I remember we only had him for 5 games, and we had a bit of a plan, and it's rolling the dice a little bit, but it was great. And I remember we climbed from 10th to 8th. Yeah. If you remember that last game before the playoffs, it was Osby Prestatyn, and it was Rill versus Bangor. And the maddest thing with that was that Rill, I believe at the time, I could be wrong on the score, they were 3-0 up, and we were winning. So we thought at that point, well, they're going to get 7th. Unless we scored, I think it was another 2 goals. I always remember in the game that we'd sent, I think it was a corner, we'd sent George up.
Well, it was me that was running up and down the stairs, because I was checking flash scores and running up and down into the gantry to let you know what the latest score was.
That was it. And I mean, one of the best, I was to say, we sent George and Steve Evans at the time, go on up you go, we need another 2 goals. And I remember you running down, Jay, it's Bangor are winning. Yeah. I remember it was just, Get back. See,
the one thing I remember was Kev McIntyre turning round to me, and he couldn't believe I was being serious, and he gave me a look of death. He was like, "Are you being serious? Are you serious?" He just genuinely couldn't believe it. He thought I was taking the mick. It was quite funny. No. I remember that, because there was a massive, loads of people on the pitch after the game and everything, all celebrating.
Yeah, it was massive, because that was everything that come around that, and again against the odds was brilliant, and to get. Again, so like you said, so we were next stage now, because I believe that when we played in the first playoffs, it was, I can't remember the reason why, but it was us versus Bala 78th, whereas this one we were into the actual playoff semi. So again, another edition. Like you said, it was a bit heartache really, because we played Aberystwyth away and we'd done so well. Tactically, we got it right. We got the team right. We were 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go. Steve Evans, remember, scored a great header, and then unfortunately I think it was 5 minutes to go. And
2-1 it was, mate. Sean Miller also scored as well.
We were
2-1 up with about 8 minutes to go or something sickening like that. I think it was. We conceded an own goal, 2-2 in stoppage time, and then I remember Mark Jones, he went on the run, and I think one of our defenders slipped at the back, and he went and scored 3-2, and it was really hard, but. Again, one of the positives is that it was another progressive season. It was another clarity of where we were going. And I would still say that was also what was so fortunate from the club is Gary and his vision, Gary Jones, his owner. And following that game, I think it definitely shifted that, we can make that next change. I always remember meeting Gary and what he wanted to do the following season. And financially, he backed it even further, which was testament to him and what he wished to achieve. And that summer, we recruited some great players that led into the start of something quite special, really. Then, obviously, the following season, it was the arrival of Andy Morrison. We hadn't started out so well that season, but rock bottom of the league, I believe. And you took over for a couple of games, turned the corner a little bit, and then Andy's come in, and obviously, as we say, the rest is history sort of thing in terms of what we've done the last 5 years since. But obviously, you were in charge for those first few games before Andy actually came in, and as I say, started to turn the corner for us.
Yeah, well, again, it was a really difficult one, wasn't it? Because I would still say that pre-season, on reflection, one of the best things we did as a club, I think our recruitment that summer was top draw. And I think a lot of people do forget that when you look at the players of Wes Baines.
Absolutely.
Obviously, Danny Harrison has signed, didn't see Alan Morris. Who've been exceptional. Les Davis, there was a key. That was one of the biggest signs at the time. John Danby came in, and then amongst others, and there's 4 or 5 players there that have gone on to have 5, 6 really successful years at the club. So we've done really well on that front. Unfortunately, was what it was. It arguably, on reflection, it was probably too much change initially. We changed a lot. A lot had gone out. I would say 75-80% of the team had changed. And it was always going to take time. It just didn't ever click, and we were always close to it. And obviously, unfortunately, Alan left the club from that. And like you said, I took over 4 games, and we did well. I mean, we won 2 in the league. I remember one away at Port Talbot, and we'd actually got to 11th in the league before Annie came in. But then I also remember a big learning curve for myself was that the last game was Newtown. The last game I had, and we fought it down half time. And I remember thinking, I've just won 3. This manager lark can teach you this. And you get a reality check, and football gives you that. And I remember trying. It was totally my fault. It wasn't the players. I tried something tactically that I thought would work Newtown, and it was just the worst thing that we could have done, arguably. But then we got back to 4-2. We changed a few things at half time, but it was again another good one because it set it up well. And Andy then joined, and as you said, the journey from there, from 4-5 years on, and the roller coaster that first season, from the having to beat TNS to make the top 6, the run that we went on when Andy straight away joined, and what he brought to the club. And because you got to remember with Andy that he had to use the same players, so it literally was the same structure, but what he brought into the club was just that difference required at that time was top draw. And then you look at that January window with your John Disney, Nathan Wolfe. How I would view top signings is, again, longevity. They've been so consistent.
Only 2 signings, though. Not enormous changes to the squad.
No, huge, but great people. And that was the key. We'd always said that on recruitment, that from that summer, that's what we were looking for. Good people, a good player second, and them to fit into it well. And you remember that time. Nathan Wolfe, especially him, with his deliveries that season, and was just top draw, and was a huge difference. And then to lead to what it did in the playoff final with Airbus was icing on the cake for a fully deserved season from the joys of Andy Morrison joining the club.
Obviously, then that leads to our first ever European experience, and how can you get any better than the Starbeck away victory than for your first experience in it? It was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, obviously, I've done the review of it recently on the website, and it's brought back all the memories. But what was your take on it over the 2 games? I mean, I thought we should have won the home game, to be honest with you, as well. But
yeah, it was, again, another incredible one, because that season, it's just been such a drive and such a focus. As I said, you can't, I've been so privileged to work with Andy for so long, because his knowledge, his understanding of the game, his vision, his passion, and his leadership are just absolutely top class. And it came straight away. And to lead the journey that we did, as you said, to the playoff final prior to Europe, where we'd made top 6 on the last day, beating TNS at home, which was incredible. To then to get in the playoffs and finish 4th to get home advantage, which again people forget. The Carmarthen semi, where they had a penalty, and John Rushton saved it because John Danby was injured, and Rushton come in again. Great recruitment from Neil as well, having John Danby and John Rushton all key parts. And then that final, which for me, Nick, was, I don't know, one of, if not the most historic result, because that was the changing point. When we played that Airbus team were favourites. They had a better team on us on paper, arguably, and they've been in Europe so many times. And to do what we did in that famous Wes Baines goal, he'll go down in history for that. But then, like you said, back to then lead into our first ever Europe. I remember the celebrations of that. But then the next day, I always remember me, Gary, Trevor Green, then as secretary, and Andy are in a meeting, and it's what do we do now? How do we do Europe? What do we do? We've never done these things. Geneva, you have to do that. Your licensing, your sat, and I love that side of football as well, Nick. I love the football and the coaching, but the off the field side, I'm quite intrigued by as well, and how it all operates. And Europe was a total different kettle of fish. What was all the requirements were, and it was great. And that first, as you said, where against Stabæk, and what we'd done with the Stabæk. I remember being on a holiday myself, and once a draw was made, we downloaded all the 10 games because they were in season, which people view as a negative, but you can flip that to a positive because you can see exactly what they're doing currently and what the team is. And, we flipped on that way. And we've done, I think we'd watched the last 10 games. I've watched 3 games a day whilst on holiday. You're noting everything down. And we were prepared, and Andy again went over to see him, as he always does. That's one of his key factors is he's meticulous in watching opposition. That's always been a big thing of ours. And to get that result, as he did at home, first of all, to not concede, which is quite memorable in itself, but to then go away and, you were there with us, Nick. It was just, I always remember sat on the bench and we'd gone 1-0 up, and you're still a little bit, this is going to be hard to hold out to this. This is not expected. I remember them having a man sent off, and even then at 5 minutes to go, I'm just myself, I'm quite pessimistic in football. You always worry the worst case and make sure you're right and make sure defensively you're right. If that can happen, and I'm still not having it. And they've got to score 2 goals with 10 men, 5 to go. And when that whistle went, euphoria around it and the joy and the just wilderness it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. Really? Yeah, and the lads that we've got, all of them are involved in that. It's a hugely historic, and all of us. What's famous part of that, Nick, and you were there as well, is the night out in Norway along the canal, because that was I remember, because the joke of the night before, wasn't it, was that Andy had promised if we were to win it, he'd flashed his bank card and it's on me, lads, and then we did it, and he had to pay up. And I think we didn't have long left, because I think with their opening hours, there's only 2 hours left in the bar, but the amount that was drank and the J.O. in singing on the mic and all that, and it was just it was mate, it was incredible, and that would still be one of the greatest nights ever at the club, without a shadow of a doubt.
What I put in my article the other week was the thing that I remember most vividly was that the following morning, myself, Gemma, Andy and Danny Harrison all had to get the early flight home, and we were on the minibus ride back to the airport that was an hour and a half ride, and everybody else is sitting there struggling because of the time that we've been out till the night before, and Andy's sitting there watching the Vojvodina game on his phone from the night before. And then obviously talk about what Serbia was like to you, because obviously Norway was beautiful and everybody was so nice and lovely and welcoming to us. And then you get to Serbia, and that's a proper Eastern European football. I can't think how to describe it, but kind of full of flares.
It was complete contrast, wasn't it? It was. I think the thing with Stabæk, and right or wrong, but we did identify they were very, very technically gifted. Yeah, they played a lot with. We always felt that physically and against a number of our set plays and aerially, they were weak. We felt that was their weakness that we could exploit, and we were fortunate. I remember, like you said, the next day, and my harsh reality was, because you didn't think in this way, whether it was bad plan or not. But we've now got to get into Vojvodina, into Serbia, and it wasn't, even at that point, it wasn't really that. It's not really going to happen. It might not happen. So don't get. And we had to then sort of flat. And I remember that being one of the biggest challenges I'd ever had, because at that point, that fell on me, because we didn't. I remember Trevor at the time. I think he was away. It might have been. And we had to sort it out. I always remember, in fairness, I'll never forget the support that Andrew Howard and FAW gave us with that. Yeah. Because the Welsh national team had actually played in Serbia at that ground a year or so prior. So they had the full knowledge on the hotel, and they were hugely supportive of that. But yeah, like you said, I remember from Stabæk, it was a beautiful Norwegian, lovely people, all that, to welcome to Serbia. And I remember we had our riot van escorts here and everywhere, and they had a much bigger fan base, hostile environment, and these were proper men. Every player was 6+. Every player was physical. They could all play. They could mix it if you wanted to mix it, and again, Nick,
we were so lucky over there as well.
And it was a deflected Sean Smith goal in the last few minutes, but the lads always have a laugh. I remember, I think it was Ian Kearney and George Serrano who were centre halves that night, and I think one of them said, it might have been Ian Kearney to George, "How long have we got left, George? They can't keep this up. They can't keep this up." And
that was after about 10 minutes.
And all lads are dripping. And I mean, it's only 10 minutes gone.
Yeah.
Oh no, we've got 80 to go. Yeah, and that was the intensity. But that again, it showed the character of the group and what Andy created, because there is a complete find a way, never die attitude, and it just feeds through the whole football club. And that night, again, although it was a defeat, Nick, and it was one of our best ever European performances, because we were so good defensively, and to just concede that at the end, it was unfortunate. But what a first year in Europe! To have them two experiences was immense,
unbelievable. And then that season, we then went 2 places better in the league. Obviously, we'd finished 4th the season before and into the playoffs. So the following year, we then ended up finishing 2nd, a 0-0 draw away at Cardiff Met. The result that ended up securing it for us, but it put us straight back into Europe and also into the Iron Brew Cup for the first time as well.
Yeah, that season, again, probably didn't get enough credit for what it deserves that season, because to go from where we were then to a stable, to be second, guarantee European football. And again, another great group that we had, and we recruited well that summer. Obviously, Michael Wilde came in, Matty Williams, some really good people and good players. And that year we were very consistent, and I think we had the best ever defensive record in the Welsh Prem that year. That was a big achievement in the last game against Cardiff Met. I said we're more prepared then for Europe. We'd had a understanding of it. We knew the logistics and what things had to do, and you just get better. More experience you get, and more opportunities. And I always remember the first year, Nick, actually ringing every single manager in the Welsh Prem personally who'd been in Europe.
What do you do? How do you do it?
To gauge it. Obviously Andy had experience with Airbus, but that's how we operated. We wanted to gain every bit of experience we could, and we did. And then when we did get second in the league, it was great. And the best plus was the first ever year in the Iron Brew, which has been a great success for the club and something that we want to be a part of. And as long as it's available, this was a really, really good season.
Obviously, with qualifying for Europe that year, we faced off against Helsinki. And because of Andy getting sent off against Vojvodina, that left you as the man on the touchline up at Bangor. What do you remember about that game? Obviously, because that again was an enormous win for the club that I don't think anybody predicted, and we go and win 1-0 against Helsinki.
Yeah, that was another. We keep saying it, but it was a historic night. It was a game where this wasn't Stabæk. This was Helsinki, top of the Finnish league, midway through, had been in the Champions League, incredible club history. And, I remember, because I was fortunate enough, I went to in Geneva for this. And when we drew Helsinki, we met there. And they were nice enough guys, but I always remember straight away they talked over to who they were playing. Second round, they'd sort of bypassed us. We'll beat you, so we'll do that easy, and we're going to speak to them. And that's that's fine. That's how they work. But it was also a leg up for us. But personally for me, it was one of the proudest and most nerve-wracking games ever. Because, as I said, Andy was suspended. Obviously, we do all the work prior, so and there's continue. Andy picked the team, whatnot. But to have that on the bench and be part of that, and like I said, I remember Nathan Wolf. It was a great little short free kick, and then he's delivered the ball back. He'll tell you he aimed to score, but it's the delivery and whatnot. But again, 1-0, and we did the job. And I always remember that one ending it, because the key with them results now, I know it's changed York, but it was the coefficient points as well. So even though we didn't win the round, by winning that game, we increased coefficient points, which also helps the nation, helps the FAW. and the national funding, and it all runs a circle. But yeah, that was a really, really incredible night. And even for me personally, I always remember quite reflective on that night, as well as to the age of 14, 15, coaching Connah Tigers under 7s, 8s, and to now be on the touchline for a fixture of that magnitude and that stature was an incredible journey for me personally. And what the lads did that night was again another feat which set up a huge away game, really.
I know one personally from me from that night is that I've got a photo of you saluting Andy up in the crowd whilst Neil Ebrel's in the foreground, sort of going absolutely wild. I know you've told me in the past that you love that photo, so I just remember seeing that one. And Gwynder fell up in the crowd celebrating like mad as well, obviously, for, as you say, with the coefficient points.
Yeah, it was huge for everyone involved, because again, it was just one of them. We were never given a chance. I think the odds that night, even at home, we were 30-1 or something to win that game, and it just showed what we can do. But again, we know the planning that went ahead. We had them watch. We went to the games. We've done everything meticulously. We've done everything we can, and with the group that we have and we've had, that these are just things that they're achievable for our group now. They've got a belief that they can do it. They can find a way. And like you said, that night was great and took us to an away fixture, which was, I think the crowd was at 15,000-20,000, was one of the biggest we've ever played in front of. And, that was another great experience. It's just unfortunate, some errors, we didn't quite do enough, because that was the only negative of it, that, it is one of the best ever results in European history. Yeah. But there's always been a taint on it from our side, because we believe that with a 1-0 win at home, we had a real chance. Yeah, we had a real chance away. We can't ever shy behind that. But still, credit to what the players did, and that was another great experience that we had away.
That was right at the beginning of the season, but the very final day of the season couldn't have gone any better as well that year, 2018. Obviously, the first team winning the Welsh Cup, and then that same weekend, a couple of different age group winners of the Academy Cup as well. I mean, as a club, it doesn't get much better than that.
No, 2018, that weekend to finish it, we've had Neil Gibson join that year around January time, and Neil was another great one, to learn from his experience as a player, coach, and what he brought to the team was immense. And that year where we did go on that Welsh Cup run, and I always remember the home game beating TNS in the quarterfinals. And then following that, the Bangor result in the semi, which a lot of people still say one of the best results in the club's history, and what we did that night, and a lot of people have good recollection on that. But the Aberystwyth game, I'm a Welsh football fan as well as working in the game, and not being biased, well, maybe I'm being biased. That final, everything was the best Welsh Cup final.
Yeah,
when you look at
how they got final as well.
Yeah, everything fitted, from the air show prior to it, weather,
the pageantry and everything around it.
Yeah, the fans that ABBA brought, but bigger than the fans that we brought. A lot of people don't give us enough credit for the crowds that we can produce. Yes, we don't produce someone weekly enough at home games. Appreciate that. But when it comes to finals and we get the academy involved and we got community projects involved, and we took an immense support there, and that to win the game, the performance that we did, and again the photos at the end, another big one for me, Nick. And you talk with all the kids, that sea of red, everyone celebrating together, huge, and it was and that's what we've pushed. We're big on it. We've said it for a long time now. One club, from 8 all the way through, it is one club. That's the mentality. We've always pushed for that since I've started day one. We're 10 years now, and that was immense. And then, like I said, to follow on from that Welsh Cup win, the first ever in the club's history, to then the next day to have had the 3 Academy Cup teams all make the national final. So all were crowned Northern champions, and our 12s, 14s, 16s, our 12s and 14s won as well, national winners. So to win 3 out of 4 as a 4 finalists is key. And what was really important with that, Nick, in my opinion, was that that's how a club should be viewed, in my opinion. It's not just first team level, it's what's your success across the board.
Absolutely.
And that's Academy Cup teams, your under 19s. We're now fortunate enough to have a ladies team. We want success around, because if any of our young players are going to get to first team level, they have to have that competitiveness in them. They have to be successful as best they can. Result will always come second to development, but that's the mentality. And to have any club do that again, I think is going to be a huge, huge ask. And that was an incredible achievement what we did to get all 4 there. And it was a very special weekend for the club.
And again, then obviously by winning the cup, we were then placed straight into Europe again. This time away into Belarus, so even further into Eastern Europe, and away against Shakhtar Soligorsk. Obviously, that was a completely different experience as well, with the way everything was set up over there. It was a completely different world again compared to the couple of places that we've been before.
Yeah, it was. Soligorsk was difficult because I remember we couldn't get location close enough to the ground. No. We couldn't fly close enough. If you remember, we couldn't train on the stadium the night prior due to where we were in the hotel. We had to make that call. And it was logistically, it was a very, very difficult one to do. But I always remember that with it. And I think the only shame with the Soligorsk one, I think that both performances, home and away, we could have done better. That was my opinion. I just feel there was neither game, and I wouldn't say Soligorsk were miles better than us because I don't think they were.
No.
I don't think that we were respectful of what we did, and we were admirable in our efforts, but we just didn't really ask a question of them. We didn't really get our tactics as staff. Myself included, all of us, that we probably didn't get it as right as other games, and that's Europe. That's the standard. And you look at what they've gone on to do, and they've had huge success. In their league and their regulars in European football, and they were a very, very strong team. But it was another experience. In Belarus, it was a difficult one. But it was that was one of the most challenging years, I'd say, that one, Nick. Whether you felt that as well, being over there, or
it was a difficult one. I don't think we maybe got what we deserved to a certain extent as well, though, because in the last 20 minutes of the away game, we did hit the post and we did challenge them quite a lot, sort of thing. So again, I think they scored at just the right time to sort of kill us off in both ties, to be perfectly honest with you. Even though we got Callum's penalty in the first leg, I don't think it really worried them at any point, to be perfectly honest, without sounding horrible. But Wiggy at the post in the second half over there, and it could have been a different story, sort of thing, a little bit as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I always remember that we had a few injuries as well. We had to change a few personnel around and whatnot. It just wasn't. Did everything right and pretty meticulous as always, but unfortunately, it just wasn't one of those memorable European nights that we'd had the previous 2 years of. But another amazing experience, another great learning curve for us all. We took a lot from them as a team as well, and how they structured and how they did things and how they played, and even the structure of warm-ups. And there was a lot that we actually took from there. So that led us into another successful season in the Welsh Premier.
It was a fantastic season in the league, but obviously I think what everybody will most remember last season for would be the Iron Brew Cup run, obviously, that ultimately ended with a runners-up medal. But I think nobody would have expected us to have get to the final in all reality at the beginning of the season.
No, I watched.
Maybe externally from the club, I should say that.
BBC Alba did a production on it over the weekend, and it was great. And and it was, to be fair, the whole reflection of the cup was geared around ourselves because of what we'd achieved and who we'd beaten along the way. And it was, there's so many memorable of that, with the Falkirk result to kick us off, which was again, that was probably the start of it. Really, that was how they gone and beat Falkirk.
What they done from there.
No, and that was huge. I remember Wiley's headed with that one, and then it was, if I got my dates right, I think it was the Coleraine game.
Coleraine
that at home.
Fantastic following from Ireland, by the way.
Fan base. Yeah, that was brilliant. And the D-side stadium, every seat taken.
Yeah.
And they're things you want to do. But again, I remember it was a George run header from the long throw set piece, which was great. Then the old famous Queen's Park result. Away at Ham Park. That was another one, Nick. How many of us are going to get that opportunity to play or coach or be involved in a game at Hampden Park?
Absolutely.
It was crazy, and to get that win after being defeated, and then settle the semi-final against Edinburgh, which again was another game where, yes, they were, I think, the tier 3 at the time, and tier 4, where they were in the league and the quality of players they had and where they were going as a club. That was a really tough game. And
I think they were on a really long unbeaten spell at that point as well. They hadn't lost in 8 to 10 games or something like that at that point, I think.
Yeah, huge outfit, mate. And And to do that in front of that was, I believe, record-breaking crowd at the Deeside Stadium, and to have them celebrations at home is something we're not used to, and that was great. And then to have the challenge of where the final was initially, and there was a few questions over that, but do you know what, Nick? I think it worked out well. I personally, on reflection now, you understand why they did it. To get the fan base there and where the location was, and there's a few debates around it, but it worked. It was a great final. Yeah,
I think when you think about it in terms of getting the most Ross County fans to the final, they want to keep it as close to them as possible. And then I suppose, especially with the kind of the strong rivalry between Ross County and Inverness up there as well, they were kind of playing on the hope that a load of Inverness fans would turn up and support us, and they did.
Yeah, well, there was always the photo of all the fans of the Andy Morrison mask, in the crowd, and it was great, and the Inverness support it was, and it made it. And the Scottish FA and how they ran the competition, we were treated so well, in my opinion, from when we were up there and everything about that, and that was another memorable. I remember, personally, I spent the weekend up in Scotland following the game, and you're trying to take it all in, the experience, and to be 1-0 up like we did. Michael Bakari goal was an incredible goal and finish, and we're right in the game.
Should have been 3-0 up at half time.
Yeah, Andy Owen's chances, obviously reflection, and we knew at that point that was going to be tough. I remember they made a few changes, knew the players they had coming on, and the standard that they had. They were always going to push on, and Scottish Premier League team now, they won their league, and that's the standard. But yeah, it was great, Nick. And I've loved that competition. It's been really close to us as a club. We love our journeys up to Scotland.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great country. We're always we've been treated so well by every club, and that's been quite a good incentive this year with the League Cup, because that was
absolutely,
I win the League Cup, the Daniel Cup this year. The biggest achievement actually of it, or accolade, was that you gained your place into the Scottish Cup for next season. So yeah, it was great, another memorable one, and hopefully we can get more joy in that competition.
Obviously, then back into Scotland, but this time in European competition at the beginning of this season. Obviously, the facing Kilmarnock. I know I was in Geneva for the draw, and very similarly to what you said earlier on about Helsinki, the Partizan Belgrade guys introduced themselves to Kilmarnock and gave me and Tom a bit of a all right, see you later kind of thing, and didn't even blink at us. So from like the Kilmarnock game, what can you remember from the home leg to start with? Because that was such a fantastic occasion as well.
Yeah, it was another mad draw in it, because I think a lot of people, when Kilmarnock came out, it's how you perceive it. A lot of people like to travel.
Yeah,
they're a bit disappointed because they wanted to have a flight or wanted to go wherever, we've had in the past. But then I think for us, there was two big positives. You had, first of all, you had a really well-known historical football club in Kilmarnock. You pulled a massive club out the bag. Second of all, logistics. It was literally, I believe, it was the closest team we could have ever drawn in Europe in terms of Wales to Scotland. So, we didn't have, because people forget this, you're European, the income that you get is what appears to be an X amount is cut very quickly based on to fly everybody, hotel costs, etc. So that was a big plus for the club.
Well, that's it. When you've got 30 people to buy flights for, it soon disappears, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's huge, and these are all factors again of the club and run of clubs that it's you've got to be part of and understand. And the other big positive with Kilmarnock was that it was their first year in Europe for
18 years, I think it was.
Yeah, 18 years. So they were absolutely pumped and ready. They had an amazing season. That Steve Clarke had finished with them, and they brought in the famous Italian head coach there, who just taken him, and who'd obviously worked with Conte and the Italian national team. So they were excited more than ever. But we prepared really well, and I did this on my pro license, and how we did our planning from training. The games that we played this summer in Isle of Man at home, where we travelled away to Ireland and played Aberdeen, where we had a great experience there, because that teed us up perfect to Kilmarnock. And again, we did our homework. We knew the team. We'd spoken to numerous people. We knew they were in transition, because we knew the way that Steve Clarke had played with them, to where the new guy new manager, sorry, was looking to play and more open, attractive, or how we want to perceive it. So we also felt a little bit between as a staff. And I always remember because Andy went across to watch him again abroad. And he came back and he's always the most honest you get, Andy, with it. And we've got a chance, and he always says, always honest as you can be. We have got a chance to win this game. As soon as he said it, everyone's got a belief. Yeah, if the manager's saying it and he's been and he's honest, he can please it. We've got a chance. And we did. And I think that ultimately the first leg, Nick, to be 1-0 up where we were, to lose the game as we did with set play in corner, we were devastated.
Yeah,
we did not deserve to lose that game at home. We didn't. We played really well. We nullified them. They had no real opportunity. We did create the goal. We scored a great counter. Worked really well. So to lose 2-1 in how we did, and against something that we're normally so proud of, we got our markers right, our zones right. Just unfortunate, had one player just slip on it. But then that set up for an away game where we had a chance, but again we had to also be realistic. We've got to try and score 2 goals here, not concede. It was especially a challenge. I always remember,
especially when you put into context that Kilmarnock only finished 3rd, literally behind Rangers and Celtic in the Scottish Prem. When you put that into context, it's madness.
Yeah, and I think the big one, Nick, was that they beat Rangers 3 times, didn't they, the previous season? Yeah. So that was what they were. That was what they were, but I always remember the night before the game, me, Andy, and we were talking, and what we're going to do if we do find ourselves 2-3 goals down, because these come out of traps well, and and a lot of them discussions were had. What do we do? Do we, because what we never want to do, and I think one thing that has definitely changed for Wales now is that it's not a credit of you had to go.
Well done. You got into Europe.
You had to go.
You lost 8-0.
Yeah, that's not credit. Yeah, the Welsh Premier's changed now. It's not credible. You've got to be competitive, and you want to represent your league well. Whether you win, lose, or draw, you want to be competitive, and that was key for us. And looking back at the game again, we got changed correct. We had to make one personnel change within the game or position, and we were ready for it because we knew what they would do. So our planning was meticulous. We got it so bang on that night. Yeah, we weathered the storm early on. There's no getting around that. Lewis Brass made a number of great saves, but following that, the goal that we scored, everyone, the credit of that and the move and the quality was brilliant. Even we looked for all them seagulls and getting through was great. But then I think what was strange for me on the night is that if Kilmarnock had held out at 1-0, they would have gone through. Yeah. And they still, I feel, like you said, whether we're underestimated or not, they're still going to try and win the game. And I think personally, that's what lost them the game. If they'd actually showed us a little bit more respect in a way, well, look, they're going to win it 1-0, but we're going to go through here.
Yeah, let's
I think they could have held on.
They can have the result, but we'll go through. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't think they would give it us. And then we made a great tactical change with Jamie Insel coming on, and a ball over the top, a breakaway from him, won us the penalty. They had a man sent off. Callum Morris, what a penalty! That is a
pressure situation.
A pressured penalty. Yeah, he took it away perfectly, and we held on. We had a man sent off ourselves, so we had 10 men to be 10 at the end stages. We had to held on, and we did. And when you watch that game back, they put 3, 4, 5 great balls into the box, and we've defended it so well. And people probably don't give that the credit it deserves, and great. But yeah, that's and still, and I'll say it, that is the greatest result to date in Welsh history. People will have thrown a few different results. A lot of people talk about the Barry Porto game from the early 90s, but people forget they were nearly double figures down from the first leg to then the second. People may throw our Helsinki one in, but then we believe, well, no, because we didn't go through the tie. It was a great win in the first game. Yeah, but we didn't go through. But this Kilmarnock, to have to score 2 away and not concede, and I think that game officially we were 35 to 1. That says it all. And everyone who was there that night, it was another very, very memorable and historic moment that will live with every one of us who were there that night. Yourselves, as media off the pitch, ourselves as coaches, as players, everyone will never forget that night. And that's what football can do. That's why we all love it.
Some amazing scenes in the dressing room afterwards as well, and then obviously you see the footage come round on the internet of the fairly famous Kilmarnock fan, Gordon Sawyer, saying he's all packed up for Belgrade and everything. And then obviously we were all packed up for Belgrade, and we had to go. We had to go and go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't forget it was always a great one, Nick. When I think we got on the plane, didn't we, to go to Belgrade, and all the back rows were all Kilmarnock fans.
Yeah,
and it was brilliant.
And you know, pre-books,
going on at this place. Yeah, but you know what? We I remember myself, you and Tom, we went to the away from meeting at Partizan in Belgrade, and outside the ground were quite a high number.
Yeah, there was plenty of Kelly fans there that were saying they were coming to.
And we spent a bit of time with them, and they were great, and they were so complimentary really of what we'd achieved and what we'd done. And they were, if anything, they were a little bit, very, very humbled really, I would say, and what we'd achieved.
To the end of the Killy game, actually, with you mentioning how humble they were, I remember specifically all of our lads obviously going over to clap our fans that had travelled, but then they faced up against the big stand on the opposite side of the ground at Kilmarnock, and they got a standing ovation from all the Killy fans as well, which fair play to them. I mean, I thought they were going to get a mouthful off them, but they all stood up and they all gave our lads all the credit they deserved.
Yeah, no, it was a really good point, that, Nick, because it was when we walked around the ground and every Kilmarnock fan stayed, and that was a testament to them as people and fans, because that was quite a memorable moment as well. Mm-hmm. Because I'd never seen anything like that position, and all those fans that we did meet in Belgrade, they were great, and and they added to our fan base, on the actual night in Belgrade, they were chanting for us. It was great, but it was just all part of that 3-4 week window that was it was magical, to be a part of it. We're also privileged, and another historical and something that none of us will ever forget, and the Belgrade experience was another one of those.
Talk about going away to Belgrade. What was your take in that? I mean, I know that we're both massive United fans, and I found a photo probably the week after we got back from there of a picture of George Best literally dribbling into the box in that exact stadium where we were warming up. I mean, to me, that was just mind-blowing that we were literally stood on the pitch where George Best was. Yeah,
that stadium and the history around that ground, and obviously you do a lot of research on the club and you're going to play, was much bigger than what I had envisioned, really. It was such a massive club, and to have Partizan and Red Star in the same area from Belgrade that have dominated Serbian football for so long, and Tosic, who played from ex-Manchester United, who'd gone for £12 million, and the forward that they had on loan from Roma, the centre half who's gone to Monaco for it's going to be big money in the future. They had a really, really strong outfit, and then you had Savo Milosevic, that we all know, ex-Villa, their manager. They were a good unit, but again, we competed so well to be in that especially environment, Nick, especially away, and and that was very, very similar to Vojvodina. It was hostile. Then Partizan ultras. They were something special, and to keep them out.
There was 100 riot squad outside to protect us from the fans outside. That was a bit intimidating.
Yeah, it was, but it's brilliant. That's what we all work so hard for, and it's a big point Andy always mentions, that all the work over the season gets you that opportunity. They're your rewards, and enjoy those rewards, enjoy those evenings, because they don't come around very often, and we are also privileged to be part of it. And that was one of them. And to keep them out for, I think, was it 60, 65? And to be fair, the only thing that we probably did is at 1-0 down, and we did go for it. We became more expansive, and they went 2-3 quite quick in that little block, and then we reverted back to see the game, and we done well. So no, it was great. And I always remember a lot of the GPS stats from that night, and what our, in particular, wingers and centre midfielders covered was record breaking for us, because they had to do such a job without the ball, and frustrate and do what they can. But also that game, Nick, I always remember that chance we had. I think it was Wildy, one ball over, and the headed chance that a 0-0 was, and if that goes in, you don't know. You've got the same Kilmarnock pressure, but again, we represented the league and the club really, really well, and that's always what's key for those nights. And it was another great night.
testament to the performance is the fact that Man United went there. Well, Partizan ended up getting into the group stages as well. I mean, I'm fairly sure that hasn't really happened in terms of a team that has faced a Welsh team has then gone on into the group stages. So it shows you just the levels that we were competing at.
Yeah, and that was the key. It was quite nice watching there. I mean, we watched at the clubhouse because they played on the same night we trained. So when we finished training on BT Sport, we watched the Partizan Manchester United game, and it was quite. I think you went to the home game.
Yeah, I ended up in the Partizan
Old Trafford game. Yeah, and it's great because that's what we're competing with. We're competing against a team that's now competing at Old Trafford against Manchester United, and their Europe opportunities get you, and that's why in Welsh football that is the carrot for every club involved. There's 12 teams, there's 4 European spaces, there's a third chance you're going to get there. That's what every club is striving for, and every year that you can achieve that is an incredible success. Yeah. And that's what we all want, and many more European adventures, and that's what we work so hard for from the start of pre-season to the end of the season. That's the constant drive for everyone involved.
Just sort of winding it down a little bit now, just last few bits. Obviously, we've got to touch on the other thing that you've been a big part of setting up within the club is obviously the scholarship partnership with Quay Cambria that's run so successfully over the last sort of 6 or 7 years since it's been running.
Yeah. Like the academy being the key foundation for the club, the building blocks towards the first team, a pivotal one for us was the scholarship program. We'd seen a number of football league clubs that have run them, and there's lots of colleges now that are offering scholarships. And but when I set it up 6 years ago now, my vision was slightly different. So I'm coming from an academic background myself, and playing background, and my 6 months stint in America, where as well as their Galaxy, we also work quite tight with UCLA, the university over there, and their sporting athlete model was just something I always found really intriguing. That if you can't train or play, if your attendance is below X amount, you can't train or play. And it's just something that's never really pushed in the UK. And I just felt that sport was always the key motivator for academic success. I just believe that. I just felt the lads at 16, 17, 18, where football is everything, we can use football as the key motive to bring success off the field as well. So one of the key components when we brought in Nick was that the players can do any subject they wish at Quay Cambria. So whether that's A-levels, whether that's diploma, whether it is engineering. But as part of that, with the link in, they have to maintain 95% attendance. All their work has to be up to date, etc., etc. So our link in with the college is really good, and we do. Over the years, we've pulled players, if those aren't fair, and we'll lose games over it. But the end result is ultimately now 6 years down the line, around 80 students have graduated. Of those 80, we've got around 40 that are at UK universities. And currently this year, with the new additions, we've got 12 to potentially up to 15 that have got American scholarships in America, and we've got lads now, Jack Chambers, James Kilburn, Jake Vansky, are actually coming to their end of their American degrees now, and they're going to be that. So it's brilliant. It was something that took a lot of work, because the first few years we had to get off the ground. I always remember myself and Daniel Rees when we started it. No fun. No real support in that, but it was just something we really believed in, and over the years the team's gone from winning the Cat 4 to Cat 3 to Cat 2, now operates at a Category 1 status, and it's huge now, and so many players across the board. We get players from all North Wales, all the North West, and it's a program we're really proud of. We've put a lot into it. We'll be looking for, as Quay Cambria have also, but we're looking to really tighten that relationship up in the future. So we've got some big meetings on this, because this is something that we want to, that's got the opportunity to carry on for as long as Wish and help so many players. But hopefully with these meetings with Quay Cambria coming up, that can strive and progress, and it's led to huge success over the years, and something we're really proud of.
And where obviously they are based, the location of the home games is obviously at the 3G, which has been another enormous, huge plus point for the club. The clubhouse, the cafe, and the facility as a whole. Obviously, that opened in 2016, and again, you were quite a big part of that, along with John Gray and a number of others getting it over the line.
Yeah, that was a massive. I would still say to this day that's one of the hardest projects I've ever personally been involved in. This new grant funding came available from Welsh FA. They were looking for a certain number of clubs to use it with the initial idea going on stadiums, as a lot of Welsh Prem clubs have it now. Our vision was slightly different, and our vision was that we didn't want it to be on main pitch. We wanted to have the best grass pitch we could have. We wanted to have it as the best academy and community 3G. Yeah. And I always remember it, Nick, when me and Gary, we'd walk the site, and I was explaining to him what the vision was. And I always remember him saying to me, and it really stuck with me, that it's great having a vision, but you've got to follow it through. It's all well and good. You've got to drive this if you believe in it that strongly. And I did. I knew how important it was for the future of the club, our young academy players, and it was from day one when we started the application and working with Flintshire Council, Connah High School. It took us around 3 years, and during that time there were so many challenges, legal departments and agreements. I would say easily 2-3 times it was dead. It was, no, we can't do this. This problem's too big. That problem's too big, and the amount of times that you had to resolve them challenges and situations. But it was, and that when we got it over, as I said, John and Roma Gray were huge aids in doing that, and it was such a project we were so proud of. And and I remember the opening day when we opened it with Chris Coleman and all the academy kids, and it's something I say as a club we should be so proud, because it's not just Connah's 3G, it's the community's 3G. And all the groups that we have on there, Connah's Tigers, D-side Phoenix, D-side Dragons, but actually Nomads there, all the local D-side clubs all use the facility as well. Yeah. Then have the fact of opportunities of tournaments, or ladies team play, or 19s team play there. Everyone is great. And the key with it, Nick, is it's continued to develop. We've had new fencing put in for spectator, we had a new stand put in, all the goals updated, renovated, the pitch maintenance at Leighton Sunderland Doors is top drawer, it's one of the best maintained, and we're so proud of it. And like I said, on the back of it was the taking over the clubhouse, which was our next grant that we went for, and that was slightly easier process, but that took also about a year, 18 months, challenging on that way. But then to have that and have our own hub and own facility has been huge, and it gives us an identity. We've got a real home, and it's a real community hub, and which is a plan for the FAW, wanting to have these club hubs, of the community, and the Quay 3G and clubhouse is certainly that.
We've touched on some amazing memories over the last hour or so that we've been speaking. So for you, academy-wise, what would be your best memory?
Good question. I think the weekend of the 3 teams in the Academy Cup Final was huge. That was a real big achievement. The 19s team, when I managed, when we won the Welsh Premier Development League for the first ever time, the team that Ryan Edwards, Reece Healy played in, because they were quite big. But I would say, I wouldn't say such as a memory, but as a group, one of the groups that I personally had, one of the initial ones that went all the way through with me from 10s to 16s was, and this group with Ben Nash, Thomas Bibby, Jack Chambers, Jordan Manley, that group that we had that became the scholars, because we had to sell the scholarship massively. It was not, lads were leaving school, they were coming to this program. Sure. It's the first ever year. Is it going to work? We're putting people's academic careers at risk, as well as the football. There's lots of parts, and this group really backed it. And that group won the 16s Academy Cup, and then it's 2-year scholarship. They won back-to-back league and colleges titles, which has never been done since. We have a scholars team today, and I would say those 3 sort of key for us were really, really good. And then you had the tours and playing Real Madrid and playing Benfica and Atletico Madrid, all huge. But the academy has gone from strength to strength, and so many great memories. So again, as we go back to from where it started 10 years ago with nothing, and we had to get one team to what it is now, it's been a great journey, and the standards are improving constantly, which is what we all want to see.
And then to flip it on the other side, first team, could you put a finger on one specific memory, or have there been too many?
So, it's tough. There's come to my mind. One of them was when we were in the Cumbria Alliance season to win the league, and we played Rill with 2 games to go, and there was only a point in it, and we went 1-0 down, and we won the game 2-1. And it was a Ricky Evans halfway line goal, spectacular, and Danny Ford header. And that game actually got us promotion to the Welsh Premier, which was immense because we were arguably, you could have said, if we'd have lost that game, would everything have happened? And then on a flip on the other one, as close to that, is arguably the Airbus playoff game. I think just for me personally, that was the game where everything really did change. And like that real game, there was. If we hadn't have won that game, would we be here today? Probably not. I don't think we would have been. It just changed things. It changed the dimensions. Airbus had been the flincher club who'd been Europe 3 times on the bounce. We were miles off that. And since the run now, we're the flincher club today. That's, we've had the more European competition than any. So, yeah, that goal and then nerves and the build-up and the crowd and the Wes Baines goal with 10 minutes to go, for me personally, even though you've got the Welsh Cup and Kilmarnock, just that goal meant so much to the club and everything that followed. It was just so, for me, one of the most important games of the history, really.
And then finally, what are your plans or aims for the future with the club? Because obviously all of this fantastic that has been achieved over the last 10, 15 years, what's your vision for the next 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I think, great question. And it's hard because I think what everything prior to this was always a constant progression. I think we're sort of getting to a stage where the consistency as well as progression is going to be really, really important, to get Europe as often as we have. To try and maintain those standards is going to be a huge test in itself. There's so many clubs in the league now that are investing more, that are pushing more. And for us as a club, we have to do the same. And we've got the structure to do it, and we've got the people to do it, and we're very, very clear on where we wish to go as a club and where our ambitions are. There's no getting around it. Would we love to be in a Champions League one day? Of course we would. There's no doubt that that's an aim that every club should be striving for. But I also think the other big one, Nick, is actually in Europe. Can anybody do? How far can we go in Europe? Is there a possibility of getting to the 3rd round? Can you get a draw one year where you may make the group? These are all things that clubs should be striving for. We're same as that, but I also think the big thing for the club, Nick, is just pushing standards and where we want to be and where we want, with the addition scholarship this year, full-time employee of Gareth Richards, been a great addition. That's progressing. Craig Harrison coming in with ourselves first team. Craig's just been absolutely top draw. His experience, his knowledge, his energy, his enthusiasm, his experience, everything that he's brought to the table has been great. And, off the field as well, yourself, Will from the media department, and Tom coming in as secretary, Victoria, everything's growing across all sections. And I think that's key. And we've got to keep doing that. We've got to keep pushing. And I've no doubt if we continue to do those things and work as hard as we are, everything across the board, everything will really progress across all sections and hopefully a bright future for everyone at the club.
Brilliant. Well, I think, as I say, you were the perfect candidate to tell the backstory of Connah's Quay for the last 10 years on this first episode of the Quay Talking Points. I don't think you could have done it any more eloquently, to be honest with you. You've told everything I was hoping you would tell. And hopefully we can maybe sit down again in 18 months' time or something and have a little revisit where we are potentially playing in the Champions League.
That's the hope, Nick. No, I appreciate it as always, Nick, and great work that you're doing. I always said our media department, in my opinion, is the best. The standard program or media stuff or social media work that you will do top draw. So privilege, and any help I can ever be, just let me know.
Thanks very much. So that brings to a conclusion our first ever episode of the Quay Talking Points. A great interview with Catton there, covering everything to do with first team academy, scholarship, 3G, pretty much everything to do with Connah's Quay Nomads from Mr. Nomads himself. This episode is going to be going out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and hopefully on YouTube as well. So you will be able to see a video version of this as well as being able to download it to listen to whilst you're on the go. If you can subscribe on any platform that you find us on, and obviously leave us a like or a review, that would be fantastic as it helps us get higher up onto the podcast charts and everything. Helps us get a little bit more reach. And the next episode is going to be Will Cattrall, who's going to be speaking to Harry Owen of our under-19s team, and we'll be dropping that later on this week. Thanks very much for listening, guys. Bye.